Alright, so what I'm doing today is, this is a 99 Grand Cherokee, and I'm replacing the transfer case. Transfer case went bad in it. So the owner went and got another one from the junkyard. So before we start tearing that apart, we just need to verify it is the right transfer case. And kind of prep it. So a lot of times you get these from the junkyard, they'll have the speedometer plug in there. Just lift that up, pull that out, get this off. Make sure that it isn't leaking, doesn't have any cracks, all the studs are good. Make sure all the plugs are there. Everything that you want before you go ahead and install it, because you don't want to waste your time installing something that's either A, not going to fit, or has something that's going to cause a bigger issue whenever you start actually tearing it apart. You also want to make sure that it is drained. You want to drain it and refill it whenever you actually get it up in there, so that way it's at the proper angle. That way you don't overfill it. So I'm looking it over. It doesn't look that bad. Doesn't shift there. We shift it over here. Four-wheel drive is working. Wiggle it, make sure there's not a lot of slop in there. You start wiggling this and you can feel it go clink, 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 clink. Then you know that that's not what you're wanting. You're going to end up having issues. So, to install this, we're going to have to do a couple things. I'll show you the bolts that you got to remove. But once we get that done, then I'll come out here and I'll show you what you got to do on this, because it's really hard to film up underneath there. Try to get this done. Alright, as you can see, there is the hole in the transfer case that we got to deal with. So to get this thing ready, what we're going to do is take out the 8mm bolts on the rear. We're going to mark it to make sure which end goes what. Pull that drive shaft out. Once the rear drive shaft is done, we're going to jack up that front tire. And the reason why we're going to do that is those bolts are easy to get to on this side. But what we're going to do is, when you jack up that, all you got to do is take your foot and you rotate that with your foot, and that drive shaft will turn around so you can access the other bolts without actually having to fight for them. And then we'll take those off. Alright, once that's done, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Alright, so we're up underneath here, and I removed the front drive shaft, and in doing so, found out one of his bolts that holds the strap on was snapped off. So it's pretty good that I caught that, otherwise it could have been pretty bad. That, and it looks like there might be a pretty good substantial transmission leak here around that main seal. So got that. I got, you can see up in there, I disconnected the hose, disconnected the speedo. I got both ends off, and now I'm taking those bolts off there. Those are 9/16. They're kind of hard to get to. You don't got a lot of movement. Ratchet wrench would really help right now. I got basically 5 more bolts, and then I'll be able to slide this off. So, just to recap, pulled this drive shaft, pulled that drive shaft, disconnected hose, disconnect speedo, start taking off those bolts. That's where we're at right now. So we'll see how the rest of this goes. Alright, so you can see we're under the Jeep. Got all the bolts pulled out. So once you pull these bolts out, pretty much you're going to get all of them relatively easy, except for this one and that one. That side I had to take a wrench, put on it, because it wasn't big enough for a socket to actually touch it. And then you see that flat bar steel, put that flat bar steel right on the end of it, and I was outside of the Jeep and I tapped it until it turned to loosen it up. So that one came off. This one right here, to get it off, I couldn't fit a normal ratchet, so I had to go with a 9/16 to a small to a larger to get just enough of an angle to get over that flange up there. Once I got over that flange, it was simple, got it loose, and I just pulled it out and dropped it down. So now I just gotta lift the other one up there and see how if I can get it to line up.